Okay, George is on. Oh, yeah. Okay. There's nothing new. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started. I'm gonna start recording. Good morning, everybody. Like to do a roll call officially, and Sandy, if you can get going, get started with that.
Sure. Vince Orlando.
Here.
Greg Perrin online.
Here.
Nate Porter online.
Nate is not on yet.
Okay, it looks like he's just accepting the link.
Oh, okay.
We'll come back. Darren Mitchell.
Here.
Jimmy Porter.
Here.
Ryan Werman.
Here.
Rob Harrison.
Here.
Tom Brisky and Elijah are not here yet.
Tom is on.
I'm here.
Tom's online. Perfect. Thanks, Tom.
Yep.
Is Elijah online? From Denver Academy? Okay. Shelby, you're online.
Yes.
And Don Steiner is here. Perfect.
Well, welcome everybody. I'm again Vince Orlando, baseball chair from Eagle Crest High School. It's a pleasure and a privilege to serve as the chair of the baseball committee, and just like to thank all the members for taking the time and effort to be here today and to represent their schools and districts and leagues as we go forward here. Couple things to open up. Just again, please, if you can, just talk, introduce yourselves in terms of your school you're from, so we can just make sure we recognize you guys and know where you guys are coming from.
Ryan Wehrman from University High School.
Jim Porter, Coronado High School in Colorado Springs.
Don Steiner from Evangel Christian. Darren Mitchell from Classical Academy.
Rob Harrison, Denver North.
John Sullivan, Chasset.
And our people joining us online.
Greg Perrin, Buena Vista High School.
Shelby Thompson, Stratton High School.
Brian Dermer, Marino High School.
Logan Tharp, Marino High School.
George Dimitriou, Rules Interpreter.
Tom Brisky from Rock Canyon.
Nate, are you on now?
Can you hear
Thanks,
me
everybody.
speaking? Yep,
Yep.
Nate Porter here.
Okay.
Great.
Again, thank you for everyone for being here. I want to recognize all new members that were introduced last spring and welcome to the committee as well. Just a couple reminders as we move forward with this meeting, that we approve receiving of the 2A to 5A tournament after regionals and push to vote for 1A postseason to this meeting. I'd like to introduce our commissioner, Mike Kruger. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, good morning. I just wanted to stop in real quick, say good morning to everyone. And thank you for your work on this committee. As an older and former baseball coach, it's the one that's near and dear to my heart. So I know John's doing a great job with this group, and the communication's been outstanding. I want to thank Vince for his leadership on this group too. I know coming in, I think first term.
Yes.
So that's outstanding. But more than anything, and if you're on other committees, you've heard me say this, but really, our membership organization stands on three legs. One is our board of directors, the other is our legislative council, third is our committee structure. That's where we say we're the voice of the membership. You know, the voice of the membership really drives what we do. We're membership driven in every sense of the word. So committees really do that work for us. They're a huge part of being membership driven. And I just wanted to personally thank you for that, and wish best as you go through a couple of deliberations today. So yeah, thanks guys.
Thank you, Mike, for joining us. We appreciate it.
Yep.
I'd like to introduce George Dimitro, and an update. Will give us an update from the from rules, any NFHS rules and interpretations, and an update from the Umpires Association. George, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for allowing me to attend. There haven't been any rule changes to speak of. They've all been just minor adjustments. The main thing I'd like to hear is, your suggestions on any rules that you'd like to see changed, or any clarifications that you may have, or any issues you may have with the way we assign the umpires for the playoffs.
George, can you talk a little bit about playoff assigning, just so everybody is aware on how that is done?
Sure. We have a playoff test, which is a, a, a slightly more difficult test than the regular test that the umpires have to take for membership. And in order to be playoff eligible, they have to achieve a 90% on that test, and they otherwise have to be a member in good standing of the Umpires Association, which means that they've made the meeting requirement over the season and have attended the master clinic. And then once we have a list of eligible umpires, we accept nominations from the area directors, and then we have a committee that screens through that and assigns the umpires with two main focuses. One is neutrality. We try to avoid having umpires do games from schools that they regularly see during the season. The big exception to that, of course, is Denver. If it's two Denver schools playing in a game, then we do not see that as a neutrality conflict. But if it were to be a Denver school against a non-Denver school, then we would not have either Denver umpires or umpires from the area of the other school working that game. And then the committee goes through using the recommendations of the area directors and their own knowledge of the umpires to decide on excuse me, to decide on a slate. And the slate for the championship games is submitted to John and Mike Book for their approval and discussion. So that essentially is how we do the playoff umpires.
George, can you just clarify how the umpire availability, just so everybody knows how that affects regionals and having regionals all on one day, and how, we've had regionals on Fridays as well. Talk about, if you can talk about the availability of umpires for playoffs, regionals, and affecting those days.
Well, we've had Friday games for many years because of the double elimination format, and that is a very difficult day to get umpires because most of the umpires have a full-time job, and they either have to take off from work or they're not available. So we've been able to manage through the years with what we've had. If we add many more Friday games, that is going to be a challenge. And we also have to take into account the travel time associated with that. And when we have too many games at one site, we have to use more than one umpire crew. And then in some cases, with three umpires, we end up having, if there's like three games, then we have an umpire sitting out the middle game, and we get some pushback on that because it makes too long of a day. So there are issues with Friday games. I wouldn't say having more Friday games is a fatal flaw or something that's not doable, but it'll definitely be a challenge.
Yeah, and George was also referencing regional play and having to not have entire umpire availability all on Saturday, which causes some regionals to be moved to Friday. So it was kind of more referencing the regional tournament rather than the state tournament. So I know that's been having to move some regionals on a Friday in past years has been something we've had to do because of the limited availability.
Yes, that is that is correct. And oh, the other thing that I was going to mention is with the regionals, especially on a Friday, we have pretty much tried to use local umpires. We have not followed the strict neutrality standards that we do for the state tournament, simply because we don't have the numbers to do that. So
Yeah,
if there are four schools at a Denver site, the umpires will almost certainly be from Denver, and then you will end up with Denver umpires in a game between a Denver school and a non-Denver school. And we have not had any issues with that throughout the years.
all right, George, thank you.
It's gonna add one thing.
Yeah.
Reed Lester, the CHSAA president, is working today. Did not have any new updates from CHSAA.
Like to move forward with the Dugout Club update. I'd like to introduce Bill Percy to go over any Dugout Club updates. Welcome, Bill.
Oh, can't hear you, Bill. You're on mute.
Okay, guys, if you can give me a couple minutes, I still have some students in the classroom here.
Yep.
Come back to me. Is that possible?
Sure. I can do my.
Okay. Yeah. We'll turn it over to John for some CHAS updates.
Sure. Since the last legislative council and the February baseball committee meeting, there have been a few changes in terms of leagues and the orientation of where some teams are. Those have been adjusted and can be seen in the list of all the leagues, but to just go through those real quick. Pony has added a team and they requested to be in the 2A Santa Fe League. Overland is leaving Centennial, moving to the 4A, 5A Colorado League. Holy Family will remain playing up in 4A rather than 3A. Fort Morgan was initially listed incorrectly as 3A, but they are a 4A. There's no change to their league. Similar issue with Dakota Ridge, that as 5A, should have been in the 4A Jeffco. Dolores will have a varsity program for the 24-26 cycle and be in the 2A San Juan League. And lastly, Palisade will move from the 4A Western School League to the 4A, 5A Southwestern League. Again, all those have been updated in the league list, which will be presented at Legislative Council.
Bill, you good? Okay. Bill, you ready?
Yes, I am now. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Just a couple things. Number one, thank you guys so much for inviting us every year. It's really appreciate that. As far as the Dugout Club is concerned, we're on board again, of course, for our annual clinic. This year, it will be January 16th through the 18th in Denver, same hotel, the Marriott, in the Tech Center, and athletic directors, administrators, if we really appreciate, of course, if we can get it into the notes, your support on this. Something different this year, we're going to add softball. We have some high-level college softball coaches that will be presenting. So we're trying to get the word out to all of our softball people statewide. And hopefully that will increase our numbers. I'm sure it will. As far as the baseball side of things, we once again have a great lineup of clinicians on board. Jerry Weinstein with the Rockies, Kai Correa. Again, every year Kai comes and joins us. Now, of course, Kai's with the Cleveland Indians, and they're doing quite well. We have a number of college coaches on board, some local people, state, high school level guys. So we're really looking forward to a great clinic. January 16th through 18th in Denver. And as far as the Dugout Club is concerned, that's pretty much it. I know we're totally supportive of the things you guys will be talking about in terms of a graduated pitch count early in the season. And so we're on board with that completely. And I believe that is it.
Okay. Thanks, Bill, for coming on. We appreciate it.
You bet.
I'd like to move on to some postseason confirmations in terms of seating protocols and sites for postseason tournaments. One change would be to the reseeding after regionals, where regionals would be seeded 1 through 8 based on their seeding and selection index going into the regionals. This is similar to softball in terms of reseeding and other sports as far as reseeding after regionals. No changes to qualifying in 1A through 5A. Just to also remind the committee that these may change based on votes later in the meeting. So all sites have been confirmed again for this year, and they are the same as last year. Okay.
You want me to go over those sites real quick?
Yeah, John, go over this. Yeah, just remind them on.
Okay.
Balance.
So our sites are confirmed. For 1A, we are at All-Star Park. 2A, we are in Pueblo, so a slight change in Pueblo. All games will be at Runyon. In the past few years, we've had our championship venue to be CSU Pueblo. They've been great to work with. Runyon has upgraded one of their fields though, and it's a turf field, half turf, half outfield. It's a great place. So and the people there are fantastic. Not that the people at CSU Pueblo aren't, but just didn't make as much sense to move that championship game off of Runyon when they were doing so much work and did such a great job for all the games leading up to that game 14 and game 15. So the only change then for 2A then would be to stay at Runyon for the championship games. 3A, University and Butch Butler still. 4A would be at UCCS and Air Force Academy with championships at Air Force Academy. I would like to ask Jim, did you get any feedback in terms of games at Air Force Academy from 4A folks along those lines?
I did not. No.
Okay.
What seemed to go well after we figured out parking and.
Yeah. So there was definitely some parking. There are a few issues in terms of management on getting people, I guess, to pay, just because people come in from a few different areas. But in terms of the playing surface and the help that we got from the Air Force folks, I thought it was pretty amazing. Could be one of the prettiest fields in the state for sure. So. Okay. And then 5A, first 2 weekends would be at All City and All-Star Park, and championship at All-Star Park. So, and just a reminder that with the bylaw last year in April, there will be some overlap, a little bit more overlap with the baseball and basketball season for this year. So the ending dates do not correspond specifically with the NFHS calendar. Everything was essentially pushed a week. So our championships for 1A will be May 15th, similar to this past year. And then 2A through 5A will conclude May 30th and 31st. And I know we will talk a little bit later about some sites. People have some concerns with that. So, but for now, that's where we are.
Thank you, John. As we move on to proposals, just a reminder on the procedures for proposals. A majority vote will pass a proposal, and we will need a motion, and then a second motion, and then a discussion. We'll open up the proposal for discussion and then a vote. Okay, so just a reminder on as we hear proposals and what that process looks like.
Can I have one thing? Yeah. So just because we are voting on something to be approved doesn't necessarily mean it will be approved. It still needs to go to legislative council, and then the baseball committee report would then be approved at legislative council. We are giving recommendations.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. The first one proposal we'll talk about is 1A postseason and the season length proposal. I think we have is it Brian?
Brian and Logan from Marino. If you all would like to go through this, please.
Yeah, I can do that for you guys. So yeah. All right, my name is Logan Tharp. I'm the one that Brian and I worked together to create this proposal. So essentially what we're proposing for 1A is going away with district tournaments for 1A baseball. In return, change the maximum number of regular season games from 19 to 23, while extending the time frame of the season to match the 2A and the 2A through 5A classifications. This would end up resulting in a change of the postseason format and would lead to what I have written down right now as a 32-team regional with the top 8 seeds. Hosting a 4-team regional and winner of the region moving on to state. This would lead to an 8-team state format where games can be spread out and played with an appropriate amount of rest, resulting in better competition with quarterfinal, semifinal, and final matchups. So the format, the dates that I would have as of right now would be for the 1A regular season ending, just like 2A through 5A on 5/13 on May 13th. Then going to a regional the 16th and 17th of May, having an Elite 8 and semifinal games on the 23rd and 24th of May, and then a finals matchup either the 30th of May or the 31st of May. I also have that a minimum of 15 games has to be played in order to qualify for the postseason, but a maximum of 23. Some of the pros that I have for the proposal would be more time throughout the season, allowing for more opportunity to reschedule games, especially with opponents a classification above or below. More regular season games would allow for more opportunities to schedule non-league opponents that would have a positive impact, that could have a positive impact on RPI based on each individual team. RPI staying open throughout district tournaments tends to have a negative impact on the higher seeds and a positive impact for lower seeds, thus rewarding the lower seed and penalizing the higher seed going into regionals based on their RPI rating. This eliminates the financial burden of having to find and pay for a location to host the district tournament. With a smaller pool of athletes to pull from, this allows for more rest and freedom in scheduling games, allowing for better competition and puts player safety at the forefront. And allows for more alignment with schedules that play in a mixed classification league, excuse me. Some of the cons that I have, it may be hard for some 1A teams demographically to find and schedule more games based on travel and location. I know my proposal, I have a 32-team layout to have essentially an 8-team state format. However, I know that's a lot of teams for that'd be a majority of the teams in 1A. So based on the feedback we got some schools that wanted a 32-team format, others that don't. What I would kind of propose is a 24-team regional. It does give quite an advantage for the higher seed teams. Thus, 32 teams may be necessary. However, that can always be a challenge with the limited number of teams in 1A. I have a couple other schools that I've talked to that are in favor of this. That'd be Simla, Holly, Akron, Marino, Otis, Stratton. And so, yeah, that's what I have for you so far.
Okay. Thank you, Logan. we have a couple people online who'd like to speak on this as well. Reed from Flatirons Academy, if you can go ahead and add your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Logan. I actually think there's a lot of really good ideas in here. I think eliminating the districts is in the best interest moving forward. The biggest issue I have is with the timing. This is being done after school events have already been set up. School schedules have been set, graduations have been set. I'll tell you specifically, we've always avoided any state finals, graduation with any of our events. I know for our team, our school specifically, we have mission trips and school trips planned following graduation, which would fall within the state finals. So we wouldn't even be able to participate, and we would likely have a chance to participate in both of those events. So the biggest issue I honestly have is timing, that this should have been done in clock last January, then it would have been approved, and then schools could have made a preparation for this school year. So moving forward to next cycle, I would probably be in favor. I'm still not in favor of the entire format. I have some I feel like good rebuttals to what they're trying to do. But the biggest issue I have is timing. If I could make some adjustments, I think that would move forward even for this year, that we eliminate 1A districts. We increase the maximum allowable games from 19 to 21, not 23. We would keep a 16-team format, regional format. There are not 32 good teams. There's barely 32 good teams in 1A. And similar to 1A football, it's a 16-team format. Those top 4 ranked teams host a regional. The end of the regular season is pushed back a week since you lose district tournaments, which would allow cross classification scheduling, because we're part of a 2A, 3A league, a lot like these Eastern Plains schools. And it would allow reschedules. So then your end of regular season is 5-3. Your regionals are completed on 5-10 on the same timeline, and state would end on 5-15 on the state timeline. So I feel like that proposal would eliminate districts and create a couple more regular season games. Another thing I know he had in his paperwork, I'm not sure he said, was we're having full JV teams, and we're done 2-3 weeks before the season's over because of districts. So I love the idea of eliminating districts, expanding the season, all of the things they said. I just for next cycle, I might be in favor of moving it to a 2A to 5A alignment of dates, but not for this season, just because that ship sailed.
Thank you, Reed, for your thoughts. I'd like to recognize Trey from Eads High School.
Sorry, I apologize. The only thing else I want to say is I talked to our league 5280, Kelly Presser. They were in the same boat, as well as some other leagues like the Black Forest League with Don Steiner. It's just the change at the last minute is the hardest part.
Thank you. Trey from Eads High School, if you can add your thoughts, please. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I haven't even talked to Reed, but that's basically exactly what my thoughts are here with the timing. Our master schedule for the school and everything has been out with graduations, and I know not everybody, but we still do a senior trip, and that would fall on a lot of those dates that are proposed there. And then I wasn't able to write them all down as Logan was going through them, but I believe he said a regional on the 16th and 17th of May. That's state track as well, if I'm not wrong. And for us, small school, it takes everybody to dual sport. And if we could make a plan to avoid that would be awesome. Just so kids don't have to make a choice. They go throughout the regular season, then we make a choice at the end. But not against making changes, limiting districts like Reed said, and things like that. I think that would be good for the kids and stuff themselves. It's more of a timing issue where we have master calendars that are out. People have already made plans for, we're in the process of planning senior trips and already have graduation on the calendar that would conflict with those. So not against, the proposal, some changes here and there, kind of like Reed's ideas and stuff, but it's more of just a timing issue for this year.
This be something that changes mid-cycle with the number of teams, or
It can. I think there's some scheduling issues. I think the most seamless way to go would be kind of what Reed said, and I'll take some blame. I talked to Logan and Brian last year about this proposal. Didn't have everything perfectly aligned. I think we have more details now, but that's one of the reasons why we didn't vote on it last year. But I do think the most seamless way to go would be if this is a direction that committee would want to go and then put towards legislative council. I think the most seamless way would be to do it at the start of the next cycle.
All right.
Is there any other 1A input?
Yeah. Any other input you guys have?
There's no other 1As on here, but Dawn and Shelby are here with 1A though.
Okay. So next we would need a motion to, for this committee recommendation.
Did you guys want to?
Did you guys want to?
Sorry.
Any more discussion or?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Just any more
Yeah,
discussion?
I've talked to a couple of people and they didn't even necessarily see this proposal last year. I know it was sent out, Brian, this is 22 respondents. I don't believe my league saw it. I don't, 5280 didn't see it. Talked to Richard Hargrove, Riley, he didn't know about it. So I don't know if the numbers, I see the numbers from the survey result, but I don't know if everybody in the classification has been represented in this.
Yeah.
Obviously, talking with Reed too, the timing is off. We'll have set schedules already. I have a concern with numbers because by what I looked at, there was only 14 teams in 1A that have a 500 or better record.
Okay.
Anyways, and so if we go to 32, there's only 38 teams in 1A. And there's probably 5 or 6 of those that I question whether they're really going to have a team or not.
Yeah.
From year to year. And so you take those away, you're right at the full number in 1A. And I have a problem with that many teams qualifying. I don't really agree with even 24 just because that's 10 teams that have a losing record that are on to region.
Yeah, based on last year.
And they're gonna, who knows where they're gonna go, right? It could be Flatirons going to Duck Creek. 1 versus 24, well, it wouldn't be.
It'd be like 9-24 probably.
The matchups.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, with a team that's, 5-8, 5-10 going up against one of the top 4 teams of the state just doesn't make sense for that travel in my opinion. So I'm not in favor of this proposal as it's written. I would definitely be in favor of eliminating districts and adding 2 more games to the schedule and just everybody going into regionals with the dates that are already scheduled and already planned for the committee.
Thank you. What thought I had, just Logan, you talked about a little bit about the 15 game minimum and schools having the opportunity to max out at 23 games. How challenging would that be in terms of, one team plays 16 games and the other team plays 23 games in terms of that seeding process, seeding criteria? I would think that would be, and Reed, I know you talked about 21 games rather than 23. That could be some awful big discrepancies. Some teams playing 16, 17, some teams playing 22, 23.
That already exists. We have a 12-game minimum. We've had teams in our league in the past play 12, the minimum of 12 games. It throws off max preps and RPI. I think good programs should be scheduling the max number of games that they can. And you're going to, depending on the weather year, if we have 19 games, I schedule 19 and we're going to play between 16 and 19 games because of weather. And the 1A season is so short. Logan's right. Like it's almost impossible. We're in a 2A league. We have to push our league schedule into spring break to fit the games in. I mean, any weather issues, we have problems, but I think putting a game minimum. So right now it's 12, I believe. You go to 21 games, you bump it to 14, you go to 23, you bump it to 15, and the good teams are going to schedule as many as they possibly can.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying that.
with the caveat, I know we've had it in years past that if you cannot get games rescheduled, that John has been able to kind of give teams a waiver. Small 1A school,
Yeah.
I mean, track, baseball, it all happens on Saturday too. Right,
Sure.
and there's schools, I know one in our league that they have to make concessions to get enough players on their team and not schedule baseball games on a Saturday. So weather becomes an issue. You can't reschedule, you're getting into pitching issues.
Yep.
It's hard on a small school. So, and I don't know if, I mean, and this is talking future and long-term too. I mean, if we're to push regionals even back a week, that puts 16 teams competing on track weekend.
Yep.
That takes a lot of athletes away from track. So we've had this dilemma before. We really haven't figured out a way around it. You know, I was on the baseball committee before, and I know a lot of the rural schools, if you're going to push the season past the end of school, so a lot of those kids aren't going to be playing very easily. So that's some of the history of why Thursday of state track has been the day that has been the championship. I mean, maybe you can push it a week, but I don't think you can push it more than a week. But you're still going to run into the conflict of track unless you change dates or something like that. So,
John, this is Brian Dermer. Could I say?
Hi, Brian.
Hi, I'm Brian Dermer from Marino. So I guess I have a question here. If you were to look at extending it to the 21 games, how would we do that, John? How would we follow up with it? I mean, because your committee is meeting today, would that be something that would have to go to the legislative council, or you would wait until the committee meets again?
So right now, there are no bylaws that specifically state what the 1A maximum is. To be honest with you, it's in the bulletin. So the legislative council stuff would be stuff that we have to vote on that's within the bylaws. Okay, that is just in our bulletin, and it's something that we could discuss. I think for me though, to make a change like that, we would need a proposal brought forth. I don't like voting on something without giving the opportunity to take it to our membership and get some feedback. So I would suggest, you know, if we're not good with making changes this year, that's fine. That would kind of help us out in terms of being able to construct something that makes a little bit more sense for everybody moving forward. I would find it very difficult to make any changes to this year's season without getting it out to the membership, though, whether that be the number of games or getting rid of districts and adding all that kind of stuff. And again, I apologize that we had to push this from last year. It was a conversation. I just didn't feel like we had our ducks in a line ready to go last year for this proposal.
if we did a survey and got information out to 1A schools and got a proposal in by the deadline to get it on to legislative council for January.
I mean, it would just, it needs to be, it's not, the deadline would be in December because it needs to be part of our committee report that is getting voted on.
But I know that's late, but it's very similar to what happened with basketball this past year where 1A districts go away and everybody's scrambling and
and I don't
to try to
want to put people in that scramble mode.
So
I would suggest
and I just want to make sure we understand, like, I'm not, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. And I understand the dates and stuff. I know short notice and everything like that. My big thing, the big rationale behind it all is to get the kids a little more games and a little more time. That's where I feel so far all of us can kind of agree on that part of things, at least. Because right now, especially with the RPI system and everything, we were talking about classification movements. We had Highland come down into 1A, 2A, LPAA now this year as well. So if we only have 19 games, we're playing 18 league games, and we only have room to schedule one game outside of our league to help with RPI and things like that. So that's something that was kind of the driving force behind this idea. Again, I understand how it can be an issue moving it right now, especially going into later in the season or later into May, especially after school. But it is something that I just think what at least we've all agreed on is we would like a little bit longer and a few more games.
And I would like to add a little bit something too as well, if I could, please. It's very difficult where we're in a 1A, 2A league and trying to schedule the 2A leagues that are on a different format than what the 1A are. And so then, we're taking away a couple of weeks in there where 2A is still playing, and we would be able to schedule those games. So it's just even at the 19 games, it's a lot of games to try to squeeze in, with the spring weather around here. So that's one of the driving and main things that we looked at as well.
Yeah, Brian, I feel like there's quite a few teams that are in that bracket where we moved into a 2A league as well, and it's really challenging to fit in a league schedule in any non-conference. I do think eliminating districts could really help with that. I just keep refuting that any state finals on 5/15 at All-Star Park already been determined. Half of our kids will be in Uganda or Costa Rica. I know other schools in my league will be on class trips, so I love the idea. I love pushing it back, especially when we've got an NFHS calendar problem with basketball pushing on baseball even more this year, another week. So a lot of us can't even play any games without our basketball kids. So we're losing games until spring break. So it is a real challenge to fit those games in.
I don't know if this is.
Oh, sorry, John. And the other thing is our district's one game, so we don't even get 19 games. We've got a 1-game district sometimes, so we're losing opportunities to play games just by having districts.
Yeah. Anything else? Any other input from anybody? Okay, Logan, and Brian, from your proposal, what do you kind of, in terms of what you like to do, would you like to move forward with a possible motion for a recommendation?
They can't motion, no.
Okay. So would anybody like a motion to recommend this proposal? All right, no motion for this recommendation. Okay, thank you everybody for your input for that.
Can I add one more thing? I think, and in echoing a little bit of what Logan said and Reed and Trey and even Don, I think the idea of the district is difficult right now for teams, and I think one thing we can take a look at moving forward would be either extending that as a regular season week or just taking a look at the overall regional process as well and take a look at that. If it's a situation where we are removing districts and not replacing it with anything, it does give the ability of scheduling for teams there. If we have a regional or a different regional process for that, it may make some sense. That is something I think could occur mid-cycle as long as it doesn't affect your ability to schedule your regular season games. So it could be something we look at for next year.
We have district, regional league.
All right, thank you, everybody. Next proposal, John will speak for the board of directors on season of sport.
Sure. Something that will be given to the board of directors regarding the season of sport is something that we're looking at for a few different sports, not just baseball, but it essentially would give schools the option of playing a regular season game or a scrimmage, basically any sort of contest on the first available competition day. So kind of removing the idea of the scrimmage is that first Saturday, and then your first game would be the following Thursday. if teams wanted to on that first Saturday, they could scrimmage or they could play a game, not having to wait. This gives schools 4 more days, and I understand the time of year is not great, but it does give schools 4 more days to schedule regular season games. There is no necessity for somebody to play a regular season game on that first Saturday, can still do a scrimmage. It just gives schools that option. So the pros would be that you do have that option, a little bit more flexibility in scheduling without any sort of mandate of playing games that first weekend. I couldn't think of any cons for it. Somebody in here smarter than me probably could. There's no financial impact on that as well.
All right, thank you. We'll need a motion from a committee member to move this forward, this recommendation forward. Sure. Okay.
I'll second.
All right, thank you, guys. Now, any other discussion for this proposal?
Thank for 1A schools on here. That's regional basketball weekend still.
Sure.
32 schools.
Yeah.
Around the state, and very few 1A schools will be playing that weekend.
Yeah, and
anyways.
Yeah, I think it just allows for a little bit more flexibility, I think. And there's not a lot of 5A schools I think will open up the season, 4A, 5A schools, they even open up the season that early anyways as well, but just it allows for some flexibility and to do some different things. So we'll move this recommendation to a vote. All those in favor?
In favor, aye.
In favor.
Aye.
Sandra, see my hand? I'm an aye.
I gotcha.
All right.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah.
Any nay votes? Okay, thank you. So the season of sport recommendation passes. Okay, thank you. Next up, we'll go state tournament adjustments. John, or I may have somebody from the Western Slope on this.
This one is just for the if needed game. I think.
Okay, the state, yes, correct. State tournament.
Yep. So just wanted to run this by the committee. Last year, we did a couple years ago. We created a situation very similar to softball and many other sports, where the higher seed is the home team throughout the playoffs. Wanted to get the committee's thoughts on if there were an if needed game to switch the home and away for just the if needed game. Right now, the way it's set up is the higher seed would be the home team for both games. So just for equity thoughts, wanted to see if we wanted to make that switch or keep things as is. Yeah, just for the if needed game.
Just for the if needed games. Any discussion on that?
I just have a hard time taking away something from somebody who's earned something. So
I don't know if there's an advantage.
Yeah,
The visiting team won both games this year for 5A.
yeah,
I just don't know. I guess for me, Jim, it was more of I don't want somebody to say, oh, well, we had to be home for both or visitor for both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Sort of echo what Jamie's saying. If you earn a higher seed,
Yeah.
you should get if you want to be a visitor, hey, be a visitor, but most likely you're going to be home.
Yeah, sure.
You should get that if you earn it.
So right now it's established, if the higher
higher
seed
seed
wouldn't have a choice.
Right.
They're gonna be home no matter what, so.
Yeah.
It's gonna turn that down.
Hey, Sully, have you heard anyone complaining about that current format?
No. No, we don't have in my tenure, we've only had one if needed game, so.
Yeah.
I didn't hear anything, Tom.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, any other discussion on this?
Well, just to throw a wrench in there, I part of me likes the idea of a team that makes it back to an if needed game, and then they obviously win first game and have to go to the final game, that they have an opportunity to be a home team as well. I don't think, at that point, I think seedings kind of go out the window because you're in that final. I mean, you're in the championship. So it's just food for thought. I'm not feeling real strongly one way or another, just a thought that crossed my mind in regards to that question.
Good point. Thank you. Okay,
Hey,
we
guys.
need a motion. Yeah, go ahead.
Just add something real quick. I think that's probably coming from perhaps the college format where you see the regionals, where you see that team that has made it back through to that if game, they are the home team. I personally, I'm not speaking for the Dugout Club, but I like that idea of that team that's worked all the way through the losers bracket to have that opportunity to be the home team. I mean, I think at that, like it was just mentioned, I think it's a moot point. I mean, here we are at an if game, and they're, I just like that opportunity that would be given to that team. I think they have earned that. So just my feeling.
Yeah, I mean, it is similar to the college format where regionals hosted at a certain school. And during that regional or even during the super regionals 2 out of 3, you still have that. They switched off the home and away or home and visitors for that. So that's a good point. We need a motion for this to pass or to recommend this.
I'd recommend it pass.
Yeah. We need a second as well.
I second it.
All right, let's take this to a vote. All those in favor of aye for this proposal, for this recommendation to pass? Aye.
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 Okay, so 3, so the recommendation will not pass. So thank you. We'll move on to the next proposal. This is a bulletin item on minimum games reduced by 2.
I think, hold on one sec, we're gonna do the other state adjustment.
Okay, go ahead, sorry.
So it's gonna be Jeremy.
Okay. This is another state adjustment. We'll give it to Jeremy McCormick from Delta. Jeremy, if you could speak on this state term adjustment.
All right, thanks for having us. I'll let my coach, Steve Breyer here, walk through this proposal that we put together.
All right. Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. So this proposal is to move the 2 undefeated teams from that first Saturday of the state tournament weekend to the second Friday, first game on the second Friday. Just talking with some of the other coaches around the league and some around the state. And I think it's kind of speaks for itself. I think John just said a minute ago, and his years that he's been here, there's only been one if game. And if, and don't get me wrong, I think the undefeated team going into the state tournament or into that Final Four weekend should have some advantages. I mean, they've earned that. But by moving that game to that second Friday, I think it just adds a little bit of equity in terms of pitching. When that winning team has a full week to rest their number one arm, I think that's why we're seeing one game in the championship, and everybody else you're talking about. Some of those teams, this doesn't affect us all that much, but 2 years ago we're in the Final Four. We would have had to use 4 or 5 arms to get to that championship game. So by the time you get to that championship game, you have that undefeated team's number 1 against other teams' number 3, 4, possibly 5th pitcher. And I just, in talking with other coaches and athletic directors around the area, it just adds a little bit of equity to that championship weekend.
Thank you. Anybody else open up for discussion on this?
The Western Slope League did talk about this yesterday. They were unanimously in support of this. I have not had a chance to talk to any other leagues at this time.
Brian, more our area, there is mixed feelings.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a team up north that really likes the current format. A team up north that doesn't like the current format.
Yeah, sure.
I think there is a lot of talk of it is a major advantage that undefeated team has going into that second weekend. You can win a state championship winning one game where other teams, especially if they weren't in the winner's game of the first weekend, you're going in to have to win 4 games to win. So I think there's wanting to make that second weekend a much more competitive state championship game at all levels, at all classifications. Whether this was the answer to it or not, the argument of rewarding teams that develop pitching, have pitching depth, the current format works. This new format, if you move the undefeated game to the second weekend, literally if you have 2 good pitchers, you could win state. Because you have to win 2 games the first weekend, 2 games the second.
As the undefeated team.
As an undefeated team. So that's the argument kind of against it. So I think a lot of talk that, yeah, I think there needs to be change. Again, up north, teams would like to see a change to the second weekend to make things more of a competitive state championship game. Like I said, there hasn't been an if game forever, and usually that state championship game does turn into a blowout, non-competitive. But didn't know this was the answer.
Yeah. Tom, any feedback from your league or coaches in your league on this?
I think we'd be in support of it. I haven't specifically talked to the Continental League about it, but I was talking to Dan Symington via text, and he would be in support of it. I would be in support of it probably. I'm in agreement with you guys that it's almost impossible to come back and knock off that team. And I've talked to my coach, Alan Dyer, for a long time. He's no longer my coach, but he said it's almost impossible to they're at such a huge advantage, like you guys were saying. So I think this is a step in the right direction. I don't know if it fixes everything, but I think we would be in support of it.
Thank you.
So
Jim, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, if I look at this correctly, and help me understand this. So we moved the 2 undefeated teams to the first game on the second week, correct? So now all those teams that already have a loss and haven't earned that undefeated status at the state tournament now have an advantage on the team that was undefeated in the first week, because now that team that was undefeated in the first week going to their second game is on pitcher 2 or 3, right? So in trying to create an equity, we're still creating a different inequity. So now, in a year or 2 years, now the next argument is going to be, well, we went undefeated the first weekend, and then we come back and we lose that first game, and now everybody else is pitching their one. And now we're, that's why this team that loses that first game on Friday never gets the championship, So, I think it's.
Yeah. I see that as well, Jimmy. I don't know if it's a perfect fix.
Yeah. I just think I don't know. To me, it feels like we're just creating another opportunity for an inequity. And do we really want to do that to a team that we've talked about is, gone undefeated that first weekend?
Anybody else with thoughts on what Jim was saying?
Okay, I guess just going back how the bracket is set up. Again, I think there needs to be a change to make it more competitive, but how the current bracket is set up, it really manipulates the bracket.
Yeah. Anyway, anybody else with some thoughts on this?
Yeah. Not really. Okay.
Sounds like it's a patch, not a fix.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Jeremy, any thoughts on that, Jeremy? I know you guys were kind of brought this up.
No, not at this time. I think, realizing that the undefeated team, they play on Friday and everybody else would. So I think that would probably look to level that playing field a little bit more on that Saturday. Was our thoughts.
And, and honestly, even with this, that team coming from the losers bracket still has to win 4 games that weekend. essentially. What it would do is it would add one game to that to the winners bracket team. It would definitely, if it goes to the IFRS game, but it would, with the format as it sits now, they would play 2 games versus 3 games with the proposed change.
Okay. Okay, we'll move this to a motion for this recommendation to pass from a committee member. Does anybody favor this motion or recommendation?
Still making your third game face off against undefeated team Saturday.
Okay, no motion. All right, this recommendation does not pass.
Can I add something?
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, after the vote's been done, to the committee, would you all be in favor of examining the current 2A through 5A format and possibly looking at some adjustments to that 2A and 5A format for future years, not this year, but for future years? Just to put this out there, I have talked to Ryan a little bit about some different formats, maybe stuff that's similar to the College World Series model right now. Eddie and I have talked a little bit about that as well, but would you all be open to maybe having a meeting and looking at some different models and maybe putting that to the committee for future use?
Yeah, I would definitely be in favor of that.
And to kind of look at some of the concerns that the Delta folks bring up and Ryan brings up with that second.
Yeah, and I think there's a little bit of momentum to be able to do this or at least change the format. I think this is at least a starting point, just a different perspective to look at with changing with the 2 undefeated teams, playing the following week. Again, like Jim said, is it, and others have said, is it, are we just putting a Band-Aid on it, or do we have some real momentum to maybe change the format in a different way? So I would definitely be in favor of talking about changing format moving forward at some point as well.
I would agree, yeah.
I think it's important just as a committee member to make sure that you have classification buy-in as well.
Yeah.
Not just to bring proposals to a committee and not having talked to everybody in your classification.
Yeah.
So I mean, if it comes here, it almost should be almost a slam dunk.
Yeah, it's brought together.
Because you've done your research, you've done your work.
Okay. Okay. Last proposal to speak about would be the regional format for 4A and 5A proposed by the Continental League. Tom, do you want to speak on that, please?
Sure. Yeah, Continental League, we are in favor of going to and I know there's a lot of talk around the state about this, and I think there's some other leagues that are in support of it. Expanding the regional playoffs for 4A and 5A to a double elimination format. As it currently, so it'll be played over 2 days versus the 1-day regional format that we've had. You'd have 3 games each day. The highest seed versus the lowest seed in game 1, second highest seed, third seed in game 2. And then the winner's bracket game is game 3 of that day. The next day you'd come play the first loser bracket game. The winner of that advances, plays the loser of the winner's bracket game, and you work down to 1 qualifier. And what this alleviates, obviously, is the team that has the 1 ace pitcher that can beat anyone on any given day. And then they advance to the state tournament, and they're kind of an easy out. They get because they have that 1 pitcher that pitches, and then the rest of the games are uncompetitive. And I think the way we look at it is we want the best teams, overall teams. It's a team sport in the state championship bracket, not someone that just has 1 good pitcher, possibly. And so we think this alleviates it. We know one of the cons is obviously for some teams that are traveling, you'd have to, pay for a room that night. If you're in a area, traveling a couple hours away, you're probably gonna have to stay an extra night. But I think most coaches, in my opinion, would be in favor of trying to get the best team out of each regional. So a lot of them, a lot of the metro area teams would probably just go up and back each day, but there are going to be some teams that have to stay overnight. So that's definitely a con of it, but that's the proposal. So it'd be a 2-day double elimination regional tournament.
Yeah. Even in the current format, even if you have a great number one pitcher, you still have to win 2 games. So, and this would obviously lend itself to the pitching depth piece, for teams to have that. It's also a little bit similar to softball in that you have 2 teams qualifying from each regional, in softball. So that's a little bit similar.
Is it 2 or is it 1?
Yeah, one team will qualify, but it's in terms of that format, the double elimination format, I should say. Yeah, similar to that softball. George, how would this with this format and this proposal, how would that affect umpires, in an expanded regional format? How difficult would that be? And can you shed some light on that?
I don't think that would be a major problem. I think we're good enough to where we can adjust to whatever you guys want to do in the interest of the game. Were you able to hear that?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
And only being a proposal for 4A and 5A, thoughts on 3A and, in terms of what, I know that this should be a proposal for 4A and 5A, but, with 3A, just thoughts, and would they be eventually in favor of something like this, or would you guys prefer the kind of current format?
What I've heard is no.
Yes.
Because already right now, your low, your 8 seed, 9 seed, whatever, you could have that happen, but right now we get to the second game, there's major blowouts.
Sure.
There's just no pitching deficit.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask, is there enough pitching in 4A, 5A for this in the region? I don't know Colorado baseball though.
Yeah. Some, and some don't, and that's, by that game 6, yeah, you could have, that's a difficult one to kind of, have at least the competitiveness of a game 6, is could be a doubt for sure.
I think it makes it more fun.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
As long as there's pitching and
Sure.
Otherwise 18, 15 games.
Yeah. Any other discussion items from anybody else on this?
Well, I think I'm reiterating what everybody else is saying as far as the pitching goes, but if 2 of the lower seeded teams in a region both have 1 ace and they don't have anything after that, they potentially knock out the 2 top seeds that came in, and then you've got, a lesser quality team that's going to be playing in the state. And the goal is to find the best team in the state every year. So I'm in complete favor of a regional, and I understand it makes it more difficult on the umpires, and especially as we're trying to get more and more umpires in the game. But if there's a way to figure it out, which sounds like George said there is, not a deal breaker, but just makes it more difficult, I'm 100% in favor of a regional bracket that has a double elimination. It mirrors the state tournament, and I think at that point you do get the best teams, the top 8.
Nate, how upset would Greg be if you had to spend the night coming over here for a regional?
Yeah, well, he'd just miss Ella. I mean, that's his biggest problem, is he misses Mrs. Gal. So are you talking about Brett Rosman, or are you talking about my AD?
Oh, Greg Hawkins, yeah.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Brett, our catcher from a couple years ago. Sorry.
No, Greg Hawkins.
Yeah, no, Greg would be fine with it. And if, what we've had to do in the past is we've had to fundraise. We do a few tournaments that aren't within our district funds. And so we just talk to the parents and the kids and let them know we've got to go sell some more candy or whatever we do for fundraising. I think money is definitely a concern for a lot of people, but we are in a really low school district as far as financial goes. A lot of kids, 50% or something. So we're not a very wealthy school, but we managed to raise the capital. We just have to think ahead. If we're going to make it, we better raise some money for, plan ahead for that. So I think Greg would be more than okay with it, and if he's not, I'd sure try and change his mind.
Is there a high number of schools that would need to stay overnight in 4A and 5A? I know obviously schools of Western Slope, but
More 4A than 5A.
is it more 4A than 5A?
Yeah.
So
I guess this hasn't been talked about yet. And Tom, I don't know if you discussed it with your group. If you had to go to, let's just say Fruta, right now the regular season ends on Tuesday, right? No.
Yeah, it's Tuesday, yeah.
It's Tuesday. So this would.
It's a tough turnaround.
Would this be a major issue? Because I get some pushback for teams that have some Friday regionals. Number one, with the pitching on when the regular season ends. So would it be, maybe the next discussion is, if this were to pass, do we have to move the regular season to end on Saturday? Okay, for two reasons. I guess one would be for pitching. And then the second thing would be, it's asking a lot for people to find transportation and hotels and things like that. If you're traveling, if you don't find out till Wednesday morning that you got to be someplace on Friday.
And let me just put on my athletic director hat here. So if I just scheduled hotel rooms in Montrose for regional golf, they're $300 a piece. So motel rooms aren't $79 or $99 anymore. So some districts have not more than 2 kids in a room.
Yeah.
So now you're talking about a baseball team. You're probably talking 12 rooms, 20 players, maybe 1 or 2 for coaches. That's $3,600. So that's an entire budget for most baseball teams for an entire season, just for a one-night hotel room. So one night of hotel. So I mean, I'm in favor of competition and that kind of thing, but my 30,000 foot perspective view kicks in when I start looking at those numbers.
Well, don't tell my kids that you guys are going 2 to a room, because they'll start asking me. We go 4 to a room, and with 20 kids roughly that go to a baseball tournament, that's 6 rooms if you count coaches as well. So I get that's still a financial burden. There's no doubt about it. But in reality, I think last year was a little bit of an anomaly with Fruta hosting as well as Palisade hosting, because the way the format's changed, we've got to be in the top 8 of RPI to host, and I think you're going to see much more Western Slope teams traveling to Denver for the regional than you will Denver teams or Eastern Slope teams traveling to the Western Slope. I think that's probably historically accurate. We've hosted at Palisade in the past because of the old rule that if you won league, then you got an automatic hosting berth. And, we changed leagues to Southwest League because it's much more competitive. And so I don't want to be a naysayer to our program. However, the Southwest League is going to be tougher to win year in and year out. And with that, we, came out with a undefeated record most of the years that we were here in the Western Slope League, which helped our RPI. So I think in general, Western Slope's probably affected more than Eastern Slope as far as travel costs. I don't know if that has an impact on it, but there's few. So anyway, that's just some thoughts on that side of it.
Sorry, Nate, I wasn't trying to make it a West Slope, East Slope thing. Cause I mean, you got Pueblo and Fort Collins, or, Fort Collins and South Denver or whatever. So it's all over. If you got to stay there and be back at 8 or 9 a.m. for a game on Saturday, you're not going to drive from Fort Collins back to Pueblo and then back, or, vice versa.
Yep. Gotcha. And I didn't hear you.
It wasn't that kind of deal.
Yeah. And I didn't hear that. Sorry if I made it sound like that. I didn't make it here like we were doing East versus West. So,
yeah,
that's not a big deal at all.
Yeah, Jimmy, I understand your perspective. I know that finances are going to be tough for some teams, and I get it. The one thing that I would say though is you know, like, let's say that we had to go to, you know, the Western Slope and we, you know, we're gonna have to charter a bus because we can't get buses in our district anyway. So there's already a huge expense to get out there. And then you go out there and you play one game and get eliminated and turn around and come back. It's not much of an experience. And so I would just say that knowing that you're going for a double elimination tournament where you have a chance, your kids feel that they have a chance to advance into the state tournament it's worth that expense, in my opinion, for the experience for the kids and the team.
It's a good point. You at least get 2 games, you know, no matter, you know, and talk about the experience. At least you're not turning around after 2 hours and you're done playing. So it's a good point, Tom.
Well, and on the financial side, because I run a business and I understand the finances quite a bit when it comes to our program. You know, we've got, with doing this, if we end up traveling over, let's say we don't host a regional, we end up traveling over to regional, stay a couple extra nights, then let's say we win it. And then now we go into a state tournament. We, you know, Lord willing, we make it to the final weekend. That's 3 weekends. That's a price tag right there. So I get your sentiment on the cost side of it with your AD hat on completely. So, but I think that's a sacrifice that we're certainly at Palisade, and I think on the Western Slope we're willing to make if it gives us an opportunity to see the top 8 teams in the state every year.
Any other discussion, Jim?
Yeah, sorry, I can't shut up. Are we not getting the top 8 teams to state every year? I mean, even if you got one ace, and I can speak to that because our kid just got drafted. He's, you know, in the minors, and you know, even if you got one ace, the regional tournaments that I've hosted or been a part of over the last 16 years, the best team gets to state. You know, have some of those regionals been upsets and that kind of thing? Yeah, but the best team out of that region went to the state tournament. So
Yeah,
they still line up and, you know, throw pitches and swing it up. So
yeah, we are, you know, we upset the #1 team. We still had to win another game to advance the state, and we didn't do it. So still have to have the, you know, more than one pitcher.
Yeah, I know we've been the top seed. At least I've been here 14 years at Rock Canyon. I think 2 or 3 times where we've been the top seed and been beaten in that first game. You know, some of it is coaches trying to figure out if they're going to throw their ace in the first game or save them and stuff like that, which is a decision, you know, that's as old as time, but it does happen where the host loses that first game, and they're the host for a reason, meaning their body of evidence throughout the year. And then, you know, they lose a game based on whatever with one tough pitcher. But no, I get it. I mean, you got to win the games. You got to win the games. But I don't think that we always get the best teams out of the regionals in the current format. And, you know, there's no guarantee that a double elimination is going to do that as well. Someone could get hot and they play well, and they're a good representative for their league and, you know, their school and stuff at the state tournament. But I think this gives us the best chance of getting the best teams out of the regional tournaments to the state tournament. That's my personal opinion. And a lot of our the coaches in the Continental League they're unanimous in that belief as well.
Well, I would agree. And to answer the question on have we not gotten the best state teams, I would say yes, we have not over the last several years. And I'm only speaking from personal experience at Palisade, where I watched a team beat Windsor, and when we saw Windsor come in the first game, I thought, oh my gosh, these guys are legit, and everything about them was good. And they saved their ace through their #2 against the other team's #1, and that other team's #1 shut them down. And then we ended up 10 running the team that beat Windsor to make it to the final 8. So I think it would have been a little bit different against Windsor in that final game. So whether or not they would have beat us or not, I don't know, but I just think it would have been a little bit tougher competition. And then 2 years ago, personally, we lost to Summit, and Patrick did a great job at Summit with his team. We wet the bed, and I mean, we rolled the first team, and then we wet the bed in the second game, you know, and it happens sometimes, but I think double elimination, I'd bet a lot of money on that wouldn't happen again. So I agree. I think at the end of the day, the best team usually wins the state tournament. At least it's playing the best, but it would be nice for that state playoff format to be a regional. So I talk too much too, so I'll quit. Let you guys get your opinion in there.
All right, let's, if there's no more discussion, let's have yeah, go ahead, John.
Just one thing, with this, similar to the 1A talk, things are kind of set for this year. This would be for the following year. I would highly recommend we don't do a immediate change.
Okay.
Just like to see what dates set, things like that. So it just does make sense.
Yeah.
So next cycle or next?
Mid-cycle.
I don't think a change mid-cycle would hurt anything. I think that's an easy adjustment. I do think if this passes though, we have to have that conversation about end of the regular season.
Okay.
John, so I'm clear, John, on the voting side of it for passing it on to the next cycle is because schedule's already set, and if
yeah, it doesn't, Nate, it doesn't have to be next cycle. This doesn't affect the regular season. The 1A proposal would have affected the regular season.
Okay.
This would just be the regional weekend. It just adds one day. But schools have stuff set already. And I would say giving schools a full year and a half to adjust accordingly if they need to would be the smart thing to do.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
I would agree with that too, Sully. No problem there.
Yeah.
How many other 4A and 5A schools have even heard this proposal?
This agenda was sent to every AD in the state.
Yeah.
And I know the dugout club is you guys have
Talk about it.
spoken about it, right?
That's what we do.
Yeah, it gets discussed quite a bit, I think.
Again, we have legislative council that can come back and if there's an issue with it, that conversation can happen.
So at this time, we would, if this would stay on the proposal and we could vote on it, next September.
No, we can vote on it right now.
Okay, it would just be
implemented for
the 26th season, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
correct.
Got it. Okay.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah.
Before, just being, not affecting my class.
Yeah.
Okay, how, I guess, on the committee, is it okay to ask how is 4A, 5A? Phil about this, as far as my vote counts, I don't want to count vote.
Yeah.
You know, 4 or 5A are all against it, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah. As a 5A school, I haven't had much discussions with the other ADs in our league on this. To be honest, I think my baseball coach would be in favor of it. But can't speak for everybody. So
My coach is for it. We didn't have a ton of discussion because when I was reading the concern about umpires, I didn't think it would be possible just based on some of the notes. So I was like, I'm not sure if it's even possible. And then based on George's comments, it was like, oh, okay. So I know our guys would be in favor of it.
So I know in our league or 4A league, the ADs in that league that are not former baseball coaches against it. They're former coaches.
yeah. Anything else to add, anybody?
I was going to see Kenny spend.
Okay, we'll need a motion for this recommendation from a committee member.
I can't make the motion, or can I?
Okay.
I'll see what I think you can.
I think you can.
I can make the motion even though it's my proposal.
From your league.
From your league, not your.
Okay,
Yeah.
I make a
So, yeah.
motion to approve this proposal or to vote on this proposal.
Anybody to second it?
I'll second it.
Okay.
That was me.
Yeah, I think so.
Nate, was that you?
No, that wasn't me. I did second it.
Who seconded
That was me,
it?
Greg Perrin, Peter Vista.
Oh, thanks.
Okay.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Greg. Okay, and now vote for this proposal to be passed. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, count on opposed. Those who are opposed. Okay. Okay, thank you. So this recommendation, proposal for recommendation will pass.
Vinny, what was the vote on that? What was the number?
It was 7-2, right?
Yeah.
7-2, Tom.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And that was everybody agreeing that that's for the 2026 season. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Just want to reiterate, we need to talk about when the regular season.
End of regular season, yes, for sure. That'd be added to discussion item today. Okay.
John, I had a quick question on that. If that does pass, that regular season end date would just be 4A, 5A, right?
Correct.
Yep.
Okay, right. Because I know 2A, we need every day here in the mountains to make up games. So
yeah. Okay, moving on to discussion items.
You missed item D.
What was that? I'm sorry.
Minimum game adjustment.
Did we miss that?
Which one? Yeah, that's my fault.
Oh, my fault. So sorry.
This year and next year, we have pretty isolated situation due to the NFHS calendar. With the NFHS calendar, we had a bylaw last year again that moved things up a week. This drastically affects 1A more than anything else in terms of the ability to get minimum games in. I would like to, my proposal here is that we reduce the minimum games from 13 to 11. The reduction was by 2 to qualify for playoffs because essentially with the overlap of the basketball season, there's for many schools, there's one less playable week with 2 games on average being played a week. The 13 to 11 was where that number came from.
Discussion on this or questions?
Just 1A?
Well, it could be for anybody.
Is there a minimum in 2A?
Typically, the game, there is a minimum. Typically, the only classification that really has issues with it is 1A though. But it would be for everybody.
And we want to play the first week and probably not until Thursday, the second week, right? It's my baseball team, this is my basketball.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So I don't want people to not be able to because they had a successful basketball season and this affects, a good chance.
So realistically, what this would do would just automatically cause a reduction of minimum games. But if this didn't pass, you could still give schools a pass, so to say.
Yes, but let me give you, and I think you and I have talked before, but everybody else knows the pass is given for those that schedule games and that weather does not allow them to play those games or something unforeseeable does not allow them to play games. It wouldn't be for a school that only scheduled 8 games or only scheduled 11 games, or let's just say 10 games for this sake. They wouldn't be able to get a waiver essentially.
So realistically, missing a week of games, right? If I have typically scheduled 15, right, I'm gonna have maybe 13 now. Right? Or for those schools that do run track on Saturdays, those that schedule them.
Yeah.
Of 13 now lose a week. They gotta figure out a way to get 2 more games in there. For the schedule, so.
Any other questions or discussions? Okay, we need a motion for this recommendation on reducing the
Yeah, and this adjustment is for this year and next year, because of the NFHS.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Need a second? Okay, thank you. Okay, now for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
That's it. All those opposed? Okay, this
Sorry.
recommendation, yeah,
Sorry,
go ahead.
I had to step away, but no, I vote aye on the first. Sorry.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big guys schools, it's not an issue.
Yeah, so.
That's small school.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so that does it for all the proposals. Let's move on to some discussion items. One of the discussion items that obviously is prevalent usually every year with this committee is pitch count. When we talk a little bit about there's as you see in your packet, you get the pitch count, but also there's some recommendations from other state associations on the graduated pitch count, what that looks like. I think you have something from, is that from New York?
Yeah.
New York.
Yeah.
The New York State Association on graduated pitch count by month. Just want to open up for discussions on thoughts on that in terms of what a graduated pitch count looks like, and also with some even some lower level thoughts on pitch counts. Open up for discussion.
I can start on that because that was a little bit of my research from volunteering that in February. I'm a big supporter of the graduated idea, just because I know in the lower levels, I'm seeing a lot of, hey, it's cold in March, but a kiddo's going out and throwing 110 on March 15th, which is the limit, but it's definitely not ideal for a young man's arm. I also think that as the season progresses and the weather warms, I think the New York number is 125. That feels a little high, but I do feel as mid-May, late May comes along, I think young men could go 115, maybe 120-ish. I think it also makes regional, if regionals are eventually double elimination, and the state tournament makes it a little bit easier on coaches to manage how they're going to attack a state tournament.
Thanks for that perspective. Other talking points or discussions on this? I do think it makes some sense for sure. It's not ideal in March, cold weather, for a kid to be throwing 100 pitches. That just makes common sense, I believe.
I think we ran into it, state tournament time, weather delayed, if you're doing a regional double elimination. A kid goes out and throws 5 pitches or however many pitches, and all of a sudden there's a lightning strike and you're done for the day, and now they're limited to the next day of what they can't do. So
yeah.
Something.
It's not with the actual pitch count. Yeah. It's the getting up and warming up, and throwing another 20, 30 pitches ups and then another stop or whatever, and then trying to get up and throw another 30, 40. Yeah. So it's not, it's the actual pitch count on the mound that we all think about, right? But it's also the getting up and warming up, multiple times in a day.
I know I'm sure regionals go to that double elimination 2-day tournament. There's time when you're deciding, should we start this game or not? Because if we do, the pitch count is in effect. Sure. And if we push it off till tomorrow, so you're manipulating it when you probably shouldn't be based on pitch count.
Yeah. John, is that something that even to think about in terms of what that looks like, and should there be something for regional or state playoff?
I think it's difficult to adjust for regional and state playoff, to be honest with you. If we're talking about the safety, how could the safety be different at the last
as opposed to sure.
But I do look at, there are situations, and I think the second part of our conversation is kind of a little bit what Ryan's alluding to, is the consecutive day thing. But I would struggle adjusting just for the postseason.
Right, yeah. Makes sense, for sure. That's a good point, Ryan. Any other thoughts on pitch count? Again, this is just a discussion I have, just to get thoughts to the committee and just put some notes out there, in terms of, moving forward.
Yeah, and again, if this is something that we want to move forward with, it needs to come in as a proposal and then follow that process as well. This was just for talking consideration as we said we would start talking this conversation last year.
Yeah. All right, anybody else on pitch count? If not, we'll move on. John, talk a little bit about state championship locations, what that looks like.
Actually, can I jump back one second?
Sorry.
It's okay. The consecutive day one, I did get a proposal for that. It came in too late for us to be able to give it out to you all, to have discussions with your leagues, with the folks in your area. I have added it to the sheet that you all have in terms of the bylaws, the electronic copy, the proposals. So it's not on this. It came in this morning, but it specifically addresses the consecutive day pitch count. So you have a copy of it right now. This is from Tri-Peaks, and it essentially adjusts that first, the bottom row of the pitch count to 45 instead of 35. So Chris Medina is the one that proposed this. You can kind of take a look at some of the rationale that he used for it. Some other states use a number very similar to that. And it goes to Ryan's point, that time of year, it does get a little tricky with weather and the ability to, it can create some inequities based on who's pitching at the time of the lightning strike or the detection. And, if a game is stopped, it can throw a wrench in things. On the bad end of this a couple of years ago with this. I have seen some other states, aside from what Chris has here. So let me back up. Right now, our consecutive day pitch count idea is this: if you throw less than 30, if you throw 35 or less, you can come back and throw the next day, but you can only total 60 pitches over those 2 days. Okay, so what Chris is saying is on that first day, have that number be 45 instead of 35. And then let's see, I think the second day was actually the so I don't know if adjusting just that first day changes what the issues would be. What I've seen from some other states is something along the lines of that second, that total, instead of being 60, I've seen it as high as 75 or 80, but that would require a second day of rest. So right now, they would need 1 day of rest after that consecutive days. Some states will have it as 2 instead of 1 if they reach that second day threshold.
Okay.
This is the New Mexico.
Oh, yeah. I know on proposal here, you mentioned 65 quite a bit, whereas ours is 60 right now.
Yeah.
So.
Minimal,
potential adjustments.
Yes.
Couple different lines there, total numbers.
Yes, good work. So this was a proposal that would be voted upon next time unless Chris makes some adjustments to it, but this would be something we would vote upon for next.
Yeah. Thank you.
If that proposal was to pass as written, does anything else have to happen? A 1 day rest numbers on this, does it have to pass anything else, or is this a baseball committee?
This would be a baseball committee.
The committee can make an adjustment to pitch.
Yes.
Obviously, for that legislation.
Yep. My recommendation when we adjust the pitch counts is probably involve the SMAC committee with that. That's typically what I do when there's safety kind of stuff involved. Yeah, just get their thoughts on it.
Sully, can I ask a question? Just as a novice on this, I mean, we never had pitch counts when I was playing and coaching and stuff, but is this are these pitch count numbers National Federation, like, have they done the research and are they overseeing it, or is it SWAC or who? Because every state has something different, so.
Yeah, every state has something different. I have not seen anything from NFHS in terms of numbers. And I think it's so tricky as well, Tom. I mean, just being around high school kids every day, the size difference and just the physiological differences between kids to create one standard, you kind of have to. So I don't know if there are numbers, specific. I haven't seen any, to be honest with you. Bill, Percy, have you seen numbers with stuff with pitch counts, like actual data?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I'm in my car right now, but yes, I have. And I know on the national level, we're all very close. We're very similar in terms of, just to give you a little history on this, Bert got this going about, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago, and Colorado was one of the 4 or 5 experimental states. And they were based this off of, the committee that included Mark Knutson and some, medical people, trainers, and such. And there was a lot of time and effort put into this. I mean, really, the rule's in effect because of probably a percentage of coaches, not to mention names, but it's a very important rule. I think we have so many two-way players. I mean, we don't have pitcher-only guys, and henceforth, it's a very I think nation in terms of numbers, numbers. Oh, and I'd be interested to see. I know, Greg, you have the data. I think on how many of the states do graduated counts now. I think states are moving in that direction as well.
Yeah, I was just looking at it as I mean, whether you throw 35 one day and get up to 60 over 2 days versus 45 and keeping it 15 for the second day, I understand the rationale behind all that, but they're just kind of arbitrary numbers right now. It's like, well, why'd we end up with 60 versus 80, and things like that.
60 to 65, it's, certainly arbitrary too. Yeah.
I mean, I understand protection of arms and all that, and I get it. And I just didn't know if there was some, National Federation guidelines or medical, people that, could set. I don't know if we want them doing that, but we're just throwing out arbitrary numbers right now and trying to work within them. And so I mean, I think a discussion is needed and is valuable to see what is workable and still protects the kids,
The thought of a graduated pitch count, beginning the season to end the season, maybe allow for a little bit higher top end pitch count as well. I know when we're talking about 110, I mean, a guy throwing 110 at the beginning, it's a lot different than a guy throwing 110 2 months later. So that doesn't necessarily protect the kid who's coached that has a kid that's injured for a month and a half and then throws them under 25 at the end of the year if that number went up. But it could potentially allow for a little bit high end number later in the season.
Yeah. I mean, I do think the higher number. Yeah, I do think a max of 125 is still a lot. Like on that New York, the chart for the New York High School Association, like 125 is a lot for a high school. Just as I feel, and to 20 additional pitches, even though it's in May, it's a lot. To add some more of that count. So I don't know, but the graduate, I think the graduate definitely has some positives to it and kind of makes sense, you know, especially with, you know, dealing with weather and timeline of our baseball season. But, you know, where's the limit of maxing it out, right?
Yeah, I know, and everyone's in a different boat. I mean, our baseball kids basically just play baseball. And so, you know, other schools aren't like that. And so you have kids coming from basketball that haven't thrown in 6 months. And I understand, you know, working them in slowly versus a kid that's been preparing all off season and, you know, doing things. They're at a different strength level. And, you know, and so it's always just kind of seemed weird to me that we just set a number and say, all right, this is what you got, when one guy could easily throw a lot more than that and not be in danger of hurting themselves. But I understand having regulations and limits and things like that nowadays. But yeah, I think it's worth a conversation of finding out, you know, and that graduated one makes sense to me.
Hopefully we can get a proposal put forth.
Yeah, and
good
we
discussion.
go from there. Thank you, everyone, for that discussion. John, do you want to talk about state championship locations and discussion on that?
Sure. And I think Jeremy may have left, but I had a couple leagues reach out to me, more along the 2A and 3As about state sites, and wanted to talk, start some discussions about movement of state sites, or if there was possibility of a rotation with that. Just wanted to get thoughts from this group. I do have my own thoughts with some stuff, and I'll keep that to myself for now. But just kind of wanted to get some thoughts with this, just to put a few things in perspective. You know, a lot of it does surround 3A with games in Greeley, with the majority of the Patriot League being a very dominant league to start, and some folks feel it's inequitable for that area to host the games. But folks would love to be able to move some things around. Yeah, it's kind of the thought with that. Yeah, I'll stop there and let the group discuss and go from
Ryan, why don't you start there?
No, yeah, being 3A and Greeley located, it's nice that you have two baseball fields in the same town. We used to be at Butch Butler and Greeley and Niwot High School. You get rain in one, the other one would be sunny, but you have to shut down. So that's how University High School kind of got into the hosting. UNC isn't always the easiest to work with. And I would put our field is in better condition than Jackson Field.
Yeah.
So the field itself is good, and we do everything we can to make it a state tournament atmosphere for teams that come in.
Yeah.
The thing I have heard is you're playing at a high school stadium and you're playing like the city of Greeley owns Butch Butler. Again, field's great condition, but Butler one of the best in the state, but it's still just a city stadium.
Yeah.
When you have 4A going to the Air Force Academy, Runyon Field, some of that, or when they were at CSUP, you know, why isn't 3A at some of these more bigger
City field,
right sites? If Legends or whatever it is in Windsor ever got their act together, we have a great facility there. But so that's been a complaint I have heard, but I've also heard the other complaint of, or the support of, when you have so much Northern Colorado baseball at that level. If the championship game we've had the last 2 years would have been played in Pueblo, your crowd probably would have been half the size. I mean, it's a packed house. It's a great championship game atmosphere. Yeah. Should you just cater to Northern Colorado? No, it's the whole state thing. I totally understand that, get that. But we've had great atmospheres there. They're great fields. I'd hate to sacrifice location to a lesser field just to rotate.
And I'll be honest, I've never heard any complaints about University or Butch Butler. The issues more along the lines of some teams travel and other teams don't have to.
Yeah,
right.
But I said I was going to be.
And then we have 3A has had quite a few. There has been, you know, the Deltas, the Bull Ridges, you know, us still coming up over, and I understand. You know, I get it.
Yeah, and maybe at some point, you know, we can have where it's maybe 3A, 4A, 5A at one site. You know, over an extra day. You know, if some facility can handle that, maybe that would be, you know, a way to kind of get to that point. Obviously not this year, but in subsequent years, maybe have that one all-encompassing facility that can handle it, like we do for state softball, you know, so.
Other thoughts? Love to hear from the group.
John, I'll just pitch in. Please never move 2A because Runyon is an amazing place. And just to echo what Brian was talking about, having spent 10 years in that Patriot League, I understand the Western Slopes arguments, I guess, but the epicenter of 3A baseball has been in Northern Colorado for 25 years, probably longer than that. So I think it's I think that's where 3A belongs, to be honest with you. And having coached in the state tournament there, when it isn't at two fields in the same town, it makes life easier for the teams that are involved. You know, when it was at Niwot and at Butch, that's tough. You know, because that's an hour drive in between. When it's at Butch and UH, that's much easier for the teams involved than driving all over the place.
Makes sense. Anybody else?
There weren't any complaints. We made it last year. No complaints from my community.
Yeah.
I heard a great job. It was fun, you know.
And that's part of it, having investment from the community and you know, and to get that type of atmosphere environment and which lends itself to a great state tournament. But I certainly understand, you know, wanting to do it, you know, at a different location or a different region, you know, for the sake of just rotation and equity purposes.
Well, from the 4A Western Slope side, we were tickled pink to be able to play at Air Force and UCCS a couple years before that. So good job getting those venues because those kids' eyes got pretty big walking into Air Force Academy. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I do want to, Jeremy had to leave, but this is from Western Slope. Proposal, so the sites are already set this year. This is not something that's going to change. Move the 3A state tournament site out of Greeley, trade with 2A or 4A. Majority of teams in 3A state tournament are within 30 miles of Greeley, with 3 of the perennial within 15 minutes. Shouldn't take much to put 3A in Pueblo or Colorado Springs for any team from Western Slope League or even Tri-Peaks. This is a huge disadvantage. CHSAA prides itself in evening out the playing fields when possible. This is one way in which this could be done. At the very least, create a rotation for all of the sites. Just want to make sure that they have voice in this discussion.
Yep. Okay, anything else on that? It's good discussion, good and good for this committee to give some thought to. Next one on lower level tie games at end of the time limit. I think currently the lower level time limit is 2 hours for lower level games. I think the thought was to, you know, in a tie game, the inning it is in has to finish.
Currently, yes.
Yeah, currently, yes. The inning has to finish. Okay. But the thought was, you know, heard from some coaches and whatnot on, you know, if a tie game, you know, it has to go to its conclusion or something like that. Thoughts on that? I have my own, you know, thoughts on what that looked like. You know, some of those lower level games could be third inning, right? And you're at 2 hours, you know, and to finish the game, you'd have no chance of finishing, right? So, anyways, just thinking about some of that but I'd like to hear you guys' thoughts.
I did reach out to Reed Lester, CHSAA president, about this, and they would like to keep things as is. And he echoed the same thing you said. There's games where it can be 15-15 in the second inning, and it's gone 2 hours. And what would that cutoff be? 2 hours is a good amount, is enough time for kids to play baseball.
Yeah, I feel it's sufficient as is. You know, I know the baseball coaches don't like it, right? Of course, and you know they want to get as much playing time and as many innings as possible with their teams. But I feel like, you know, that's probably an appropriate time limit, at least my perspective.
Someone a varsity games.
You're right. No question.
3.5 hours.
No question. Yeah. I mean, you know, it's the trips to the mound. It's, you know, it's all that pitching changes that, you know, they take a while. they take a while, certainly.
We, our two things, our hardest one is convince the umpire that it's a 2 hour game limit.
Yeah.
A lot of them, it's an hour 50 on off the field.
Yeah.
And so we have conversations ahead of time with them in our league and especially chat it's hours. And we even said, if we have to modify the varsity level, let's modify. I mean, obviously softball, you can leave early to get out of the inning. You can do stuff.
Sure, yeah,
Baseball,
yeah.
You can't do that. So there's even talks amongst the league of 3 outs or 6 runs. Kind of like we tell you to just to get kids playing time at the sub-varsity levels. Because you can have 2 really bad teams that are tied.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Walk. So
Yeah.
just trying to keep the game.
Yeah, the consecutive runs is interesting, and you turn it over, turn the inning over, kind of like that, you know, I don't know what that number would be or how many runs that would be, you know, but yeah. Yeah, they could.
That's the league thing, but 2 hours, it's convincing umpires, stuff varsity, still 2 hour time limit stuff for us.
No new innings should start after 2.
Yeah, no new innings.
We play back to back. It's the same group of umpires.
Yeah.
If it goes that late, it's done because of light.
Yeah, for sure, especially in spring, yeah, early
Do
spring.
that quite frequently. It's like, hey, we just bat 9 guys.
Yeah.
And it's done when it's done, and the other team gets it, you go through twice, and you're done.
Okay, anything else on that discussion item? All right, anything else for the good of the committee? John, anything to finish up
No,
with?
just thank you all. I know many of
Yeah.
you are in the middle of homecoming, or recovering from homecoming or getting ready for homecoming. So thank you for taking time to do this. Appreciate you being a part of this. So thank you.
And special recognition to Greg Perrine from Buena Vista, Rob from Denver North, and Nate from Palisade, who have a term that is expiring. So just wants to say thank you for your time and service to this committee. Really appreciate it, you doing this for a few years. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for letting me be a part of it.
Yeah, you're done.
Had enough. So a big thank you to all of you who are online. Again, thanks to John and Sandy.
Thanks, George. And Bill.
For running the meeting and handling the minutes and all that. George and everybody else, we really appreciate you, all your input. And again, thank you so much for these committee members here for your service and time. It's looking forward to seeing you all again. We'll get this committee, hopefully get this report passed in January and go from there. Okay.
Thanks, guys.
All right, take care.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Appreciate those.
Sir.
It's good. Thank you.
And just on a separate note, if I looked up the 4A regionals from last year and the higher seed won every single regional. Last year.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. That is. Do you think I'd be curious the data of going 3 years back.
I'm just gonna be.
When you have all the time you had.
Recording, I'm
Yeah, yeah.
hoping, but off the record, that just seems like a bunch of sour grapes to me. That's why you play the game.
Sure. Yeah.
Teams have great games and coaches make bad decisions if you don't start them on and all that kind of stuff, everybody has the same score.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I'm sure, sure Fossil Ridge was.
Fires me up.
I'm sure Fossil Ridge wasn't happy. We as a 32 seed beat them last year, and
But you
and
did.
we did, yeah. It's, I don't know how we did.
I'm sure Russia wasn't impressed. Hockey team beat them back in the 80s.
Yeah.
That's why it's sports.
Yeah. It is. There is that. That's the way it is, right?
Even when we get calls from parents, are like, they beat us. I was like, yeah, yes, we did.